The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 19134 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau on changes to business. Any member who wishes to speak to the motion should press their request to speak button. And I call on Graham Day to move the motion.
Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. No member has asked to speak to the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 19134 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is topical questions. At question number 1, I call Katie Clark.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the report from the Scottish Funding Council stating that universities and colleges are in unsustainable financial situations with some at risk of insolvency in the current financial year.
Minister Ben Macpherson.
I thank the member for raising this question. And the Scottish Funding Council, of course, publishes analysis of financial sustainability of Scotland's colleges and universities every year. And of course, the recent reports mentioned are significant and are being considered as such by me and other ministers, as Parliament and the public would expect. In this context, I also want to emphasise that Scottish ministers recognise the vital role that universities and colleges play in the economy and wider society. However, Scotland's universities and colleges, despite the significant financial contribution from the Scottish Government in the last budget, are facing a broad range of pressures, several of which have been caused by UK Government decisions. These include the approach to immigration and also the changes to national insurance contributions, which have created an estimated cost of nearly around £50 million per year, and the UK ministers have not provided support for this.
Katie Clark.
Much of the report focuses on further education colleges who are historically underfunded and more vulnerable because of their reliance on Scottish Funding Council grants. Unless the deficits are addressed, it is projected there will be 667 full-time equivalent job losses. Will the Scottish Government respond to these pressures with greater investment in the further education sector?
Minister.
I thank the member for raising the contribution of further education colleges, not just to the people who are involved and enrolled as students, but also to the national economy and to local economies where they operate. The member will appreciate that the financial budget was set by Parliament for this financial year, and there are considerations ongoing by the Funding Council and the Government engaging with the Funding Council on the serious matters raised in these reports, and be happy to have further dialogue with the member on these matters.
Katie Clark.
I'm grateful to the Minister for that answer. The report highlighted that 11 universities have underlying operating deficits. The University of West Scotland, in my own region, is expected to post an £8.4 million deficit with over 75 academic job losses as a result of that, while senior staff earning over £100,000 get pay increases over 30%. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with calls from the trade unions for greater transparency in financial planning for universities?
Minister.
The member raises, of course, the point about the excellent university in their region, and I've already had some engagement with that institution since coming into post last week. Parliament will appreciate through the budget process that the Government has shown a long-term commitment to universities by investing over £1 billion every year in the sector since the financial year 2012-2013, including £1.1 billion in teaching and research in the last budget. But we appreciate the pressures on the sector and the nature and context and substance of the reports that have been published. And I look forward to engaging with Parliament more on these important reports and questions, including at committee tomorrow. And if the member wants to follow up with any specifics with regard to their region, then I would be happy to receive that correspondence, as would I be happy to engage with the member on constructive correspondence we can have with the UK Government to play more of a part, using its massive financial power, to support these very important contributors to the economy and to change their position on national insurance contributions and immigration policy, which have factually damaged our higher education institutions.
Thank you. We have much interest. Concise questions and responses appreciated. I call Keith Brown.
Thank you, President Officer. As the Minister has indicated, the effect of the jobs tax is to put £600,000 onto the wage bill of Forth Valley College. As the Alloa campus of Forth Valley College is vital in ensuring that young people and adult learners in Clackmannanshire can access further and higher education close to home, what action is the Government taking to protect the future of that campus in the face of these funding challenges?
Minister.
I thank Keith Brown for raising this issue, and I'm aware of his proactive approach on this serious matter in his constituency. And as the member sets out, the campus in Alloa does play a vital role in providing access to services for the people in the community, and I and the Government are keen that everything possible is done to keep the campus open. The Scottish Government and the Scottish Funding Council have identified a route by which some funding could be used this financial year to support urgent feasibility studies to inform the SFC's forthcoming college infrastructure investment plan. And the SFC is working very closely with the college sector to address the infrastructure issues, including in the member's constituency. And it continues to have a very close engagement with Forth Valley College on these matters. I'm grateful for the engagement that the member has shown so far on this important point, and look forward to further engagement with him on this matter in his constituency of understandable concern.
Stephen Kerr.
Well, far be it from me to come to the rescue of a Labour Government, but these issues that are identified in Keith Brown's question and the Minister's talking about predate a Labour Government. The fact is that the amount of money that has gone towards student funding in universities has been dramatically cut over the last decade in real terms, and that is an economic fact. And that's meant that the universities are now very dependent on international students as a source of income, and that is precarious, I would admit that. So the question I put to the Minister is this: he's got choices. He can either increase the amount of money that public money that supports students in universities, Scottish undergraduates, or he can review the business model in respect to how we fund Scottish undergraduates at Scottish universities. Which course of action is he going to take? Because he only has these two choices.
Minister.
So the member talks about the pressure on the system, and of course the austerity that the whole of the UK has had to live with since 2010 hasn't helped anyone in that regard, including for our higher education system. But I appreciate the points the member raises, and if I am reading this incorrectly, then hearing this incorrectly, then I would be happy to be corrected. But I understand that the member is making a point about a belief that maybe the member has that tuition fees should be reintroduced in Scotland, and I do not share that. Neither does this government. Yeah. The position on free tuition encourages individuals, young and older, to go into further and higher education to fulfil their potential without the consideration of the burden of debt. Absolutely. And the question I would put back to the member is that if charging fees was a panacea in this situation, then why are several higher education institutions in England, which has very high tuition fees of over £9,000 a year, struggling financially? So I think the question is, how do we work together with the sector to take a constructive way forward, to look at alternative funding models? And the Scottish Government continues to engage with Universities Scotland in this collaborative approach, along with other parties, so that we can ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the sector.
Thank you, Minister. Pam Duncan-Glancy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Minister, I'm afraid to say, quite predictably, points the finger at someone else. And colleges will rightly be asking, of the £5.2 billion extra that the Scottish Government got as a result of a Labour Government, how come they are seeing 17% real-term cuts since 2021, staff numbers down by 27% since 2007, and student participation and completion rates are falling? So, can I ask the Minister, when it comes to colleges, where has the money gone? Minister.
So, the Scottish Government has supported over 163 students through the sector, with record numbers of those coming from care experience backgrounds and individuals receiving support through disabled students allowance, and of course the support we provided for individuals to come from more deprived backgrounds to university. So widening access has been a great success. Now, so it's important to reflect on the fact that there are thousands of people going through our further and higher education institutions very successfully every year and have been under this government. The point that the member raises around funding for the college sector, this government, as I stated in previous answers, has dedicated billions of pounds on an annual basis in order to support the sector in an environment of a restricted financial envelope that, of course, the Scottish Government operates within. In this post, as I stated since taking it up, I am keen to work constructively with members. And if the Labour Party want to come to me and colleagues with suggestions going into the Scottish budget, then we would be happy to receive them. But the big question for all parties is that we have to think, where would the money come from in order to go somewhere else? And that is a factual consideration.
Willie Rennie.
I'm disappointed with the Minister's approach this afternoon, because it seems to be a step backwards, because his predecessor accepted that the funding model for higher education was broken, and he had opened the door to cross-party discussions with the universities. Is he saying that now has been abandoned?
Minister.
I seem to have a drummer to my left. I am absolutely not saying that that has abandoned. I embrace that fully, and I want to bring the same approach to that process. I did not mean in any way to disrespect another member in stating implicitly or directly that I am closed on anything apart from bringing in tuition fees, which, of course, this government has had a very strong position on and continues to have, and that is the policy. So I know Willie Rennie is engaged in these constructive discussions on alternative funding models, along with University of Scotland, and I look forward to further conversations with him, and I hope this answer reassures him in that regard.
Thank you. Question number 2, Tim Eagle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service has issued an extreme wildfire warning for the first time in September since 2020.
Minister Siobhan Brown.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Climate change is contributing to warmer and drier conditions, which increase the likelihood and the intensity of wildfires. Shifts in weather patterns from last week's wildfire danger warning to this week's yellow warning for rain just reinforces the climate challenges that we currently face. Whilst there has been no significant wildfires during this wildfire warning period, we have seen significant fires this year, and I'd like to commend the SFRS and their partners within the rural and land management sector who ably assisted in dealing with these. The Minister for Agriculture and I are hosting a wildfire summit with partners in October to discuss improving our wildfire preparedness, prevention and response in the future. We continue to work with SFRS to support full implementation of its wildfire strategy, which we will see continued rolled out this year of new equipment, vehicles and PPE backed by £1.6 million over 3 years.
Tim Eagle.
Scotland has witnessed over 1,500 wildfires in the last decade, but the recent fires at Carbridge and Darver were the worst and the biggest ever recorded. Clearly, a new approach is needed before someone or even an entire community is seriously affected. What consideration is the Scottish Government giving to establishing a dedicated wildfire response unit to ensure communities in my area of the Highlands and Islands, but across Scotland, are protected?
Minister.
Thank you. First of all, and I do note the concerns that the member has raised, as with all ministers in the government have the same concerns. We would like to, first of all, extend our sympathies to all of those that were affected by the wildfires that occurred in late June and early July. And I am grateful to the SFRS, gamekeepers, land managers, the volunteers, partners, landowners and the extended local communities and the wider land management sector, and indeed to everyone who played a major role in getting this spring and summer's wildfires out of control. As I said in my opening answer, we are having a summit in October, and this is where we will be working with everybody to see the best way moving forward.
Tim Eagle.
Given the rising wildfires this session, there has been concerns from rural organisations that the new Muirburn licensing arrangements will make fuel management even harder. And this, of course, follows the bungle in May 2023 over expensive all-terrain vehicles that were not, in fact, fit for purpose. So will the Scottish Government now review the Muirburn changes, as is being asked by some of those gamekeepers, engage with landowners and gamekeepers, and ensure that the people of Scotland are protected by equipment that actually works?
Minister.
Thank you. Yes, first of all, Muirburn is just one of the aspects of increasing wildfire risks in Scotland and should be not seen as a silver bullet. I appreciate not everybody agrees with the science on Muirburn on peatlands, but this was thoroughly consulted on and debated during the lead-up and the passage to the bill. I know that the Muirburn licensing scheme that the Minister for Agriculture is taking forward has not been brought into effect yet, and we are working with practitioners to ensure it is a workable scheme, especially regarding wildfire prevention. Just in relation to the equipment for the Scottish Fire Rescue Service, I do have regular meetings with them, and this is not an issue that's been brought up, but if the member has any specific concerns, I'm happy for him to write to me and I'll look into it for you.
Rhoda Grant.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Minister will know that less than 10% of stations in the Highlands and Islands have full teams of firefighters. They also lack equipment, all-terrain vehicles, leaf blowers for wildfire management, and they don't have decontamination facilities. Can I ask when the fire service in rural Scotland will be staffed and equipped to deal with wildfire and to protect our rural communities?
Minister.
Thank you. And this is one of the reasons that we are, with the increase in wildfires this year and with the concerns, this is why myself and the Minister for Agriculture are holding these summits going into October, so we can look at how rural areas will be better prepared for wildfires moving forward. But also in saying this is why it's so important. The Scottish Fire Rescue Service at the moment is undertaking a service delivery review. And I know that the full public consultation just closed a couple of weeks ago, but it is looking at how we prepare a safer Scotland moving into the future.
Emma Roddick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It's clear that the climate emergency is changing our weather, and the dry summer this year brought about unprecedented wildfires. So can I ask what the Scottish Government is giving to the Fire and Rescue Service to cope with what are changing needs for our communities?
Minister.
Thank you. We will continue to support Scottish Fire Rescue Service to deliver a high standard of services required to keep Scotland safe, and that includes the implementation of their wildfire strategy, with the overall budget increase of £18.8 million for this year. The emergencies SFRS respond to have changed significantly over the years, and for example, dwelling fires have reduced by over 20% since 2013. And whilst house fires have reduced, other incidents such as flooding and the wildfires that we're talking about have increased, which is why it is right that the Fire Service is carefully considering how to adapt to the changing risks to remain effective and efficient with firefighters in the right place at the right time.
Thank you. Question number 3, Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government for what reason patients across Scotland will reportedly not be able to fully access the new MyCare NHS app until 2030.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I refer Alec Cole-Hamilton to the rollout summary of the plan, which was published and Parliament notified of on Friday, which confirms the intention to make MyCare available across the population of Scotland throughout 2026, starting in April. It's right and normal practice for digital technology rollout to include iterative improvements beyond the initial launch, which new and improved service has been added regularly, and that's what we aim to do. This approach also allows us to continue to be informed by testing and user feedback. This will ensure that the service is developed to be robust, secure, aligned to what people need, and allow for this transformational innovation to progress effectively.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you. Amanda Clark and her family moved to Scotland from England 3 years ago. South of the border, the app made her life as a parent carer much easier. It gave instant access to her medical history. It allowed her to easily renew prescriptions for herself and her disabled son. When she moved to Scotland, she expected that her details would automatically migrate to the Scottish version of the app, except there wasn't one. And the transfer of paper records led to vital information being missed on allergies, on COVID vaccines and on complex medical conditions. Why, in 2025, are patients in Scotland still unable to benefit from an NHS app that provides the same joined-up care that families in England have been able to rely on since before the pandemic?
Cabinet Secretary.
Clearly, I sympathise with the situation that Alec Cole-Hamilton has narrated around Ms Clark and her family. That is exactly the aspiration that I have for my care, which will go further than what is being available to residents in England, which is to provide both an integrated health and social care
Cabinet
application.
Secretary. There are some voices that I'm hearing rather more clearly than I would expect, particularly when such voices have not been called. Cabinet Secretary.
It's a statement of fact, Presiding Officer, that this is an integrated health and social care app, the likes of which are not available elsewhere in the United Kingdom. Yes, we've got learning to build upon from the health service app that's available in England. We will do that, and that has formed the basis of the rollout plan that was published and Parliament notified on Friday.
Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Felt like something of a jam tomorrow response from the Cabinet Secretary, and incidentally tomorrow doesn't fall until very soon after the next Scottish election, which feels convenient. But the app will be incredibly limited compared to what has been available in years is cold comfort to Scottish patients. 34 million people use the app in England. They have come to rely on the functionality that people like Amanda were expecting when she came here. But her move to Scotland felt like a step back in time. Presiding Officer, patients in Scotland are stuck in a phone queue for the 8 a.m. scramble for GP appointments. The BMA Scotland call it a disgrace that GPs still have to sign paper prescriptions by hand, given the pressures on their time. Software platforms still don't speak to each other across our health service. Everything is harder when you're navigating out of tech for patients of staff. Does the Cabinet Secretary recognise that for as long as our Scottish NHS relies on technology from the last century, we are holding clinicians and patients back and deepening the crisis in our health service?
Cabinet Secretary.
On Mr Cole-Hamilton's point about this happening after the election, it's not. The rollout is happening from April. That's patently before the election. The iterative improvements that come thereafter in order to ensure, to his latter point around giving people, both service users of the health and social care system and those that work within it, better access to digital capability and innovation. Of course, I want that iterative process to move as fast as possible. That's what we'll be investing in, and that's what we will deliver.
I call David Torrance for a brief supplementary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The introduction of NHS My Care app will undoubtedly revolutionise Scotland's healthcare system. I really welcome the news that last week about a rollout plan that the app will be rolled out across Scotland from April 1st. I know my constituents in Kirkcaldy will also welcome this. Opposition members can, of course, never bring themselves to welcome the news story in Scotland, but can the Cabinet Secretary please make clear how Scotland's My Care app will be more wide-ranging than any other NHS app in the UK?
Cabinet Secretary.
Officer, David Torrance is right. This app will be transformational for how people across Scotland manage their health and social care services. When the rollout is complete, this will be the most wide-ranging app offered in the UK, because we have been clear from the outset that the development of the app must include social work and social care, going beyond just being an NHS app. This puts us in a strong position to develop services that meets the needs of the population, regardless of their being supported by the health or the social care system.
Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am surprised at how long it's taking to develop and deploy this kind of tech, but can I ask the Cabinet Secretary if he'll confirm that the Scottish Government will deliver a single shared electronic patient record and software interoperability across the NHS by 2030, alongside the rollout of a fully functional My Care app?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer. I recognise Brian Whittle's interest in this, and I look forward to continue to collaborate with him on the rollout of the app as we continue to do so post-April. The full business case, which is in development, will quantify the benefits as well as his expected return on investment and inform the rollout plan as per our commitment in the NHS Scotland Operational Improvement Plan. That will include areas such as those around digital patient records, digital prescribing and other elements that Mr Whittle, I know, is very interested in, as I I am, because I can see both human resource and financial resource savings, as well as outcome improvements for people who are to use the app.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions. My apologies to those members I was unable to call. We move to the next item. I'll allow a moment or two for front benches to organise.